Oh, well, now that you're saying that, and I would like to actually make a little pause here and tell everyone that you have your own website and you also have kind of workshops, right? That you help parents and teachers into this
Yeah.
topic. Would you please mention your website or something? How can people reach you right now? Right now, we have someone
Um,
actually who's having this type of issues. How can they reach you?
so I have a website and it's just www.adhdwithme.com.au, and on there I do consults and coaching. But I also have Instagram, and that's ADHD underscore with underscore me. And on there, what I try to do is break down a lot of the information I share in workshops into more bite-sized pieces because on average, our attention spans these days are short.
Yes.
But I also try, my videos are a bit longer because I like to reference where I got it from so that those people that want to dive deeper into that topic can then go and look for that doctor or that research paper. So they're about just under a minute, but they're just a bit longer than your average 8 seconds because parents might want to know where is this source coming from, because being conscious of the fact that there's a lot of things online that aren't necessarily
Yeah.
true, and they can go and investigate that. So yeah, the Instagram's good for little videos, and yeah, I do. And I'm actually developing this year. I'm going to be developing some online workshops where you can just download the workshop and start learning what is it that I can proactively do in the class that doesn't require much time, but I can do it every day and bring it into my dialogue, bring it into my awareness, and start making that change. And so I'm
And this one is
creating
for
some,
teachers and parents alike, right?
yeah, I'm going to be doing a teacher one and a parent one, like a series. And it's
Amazing.
again, a lot of it's that once you know why you do it, you'll start doing it. So a lot of it's quite easy, and it's almost like when someone reminds you of how good it is to make sure you're hydrated, for example, right? It's a
Mhm.
daily practice drinking water. We have to hydrate ourselves because a big part of our brain is water, right? So a
Exactly.
lot of my practical strategies are just things you can do every day and having that conscious awareness of how that positively impacts and supports not just your child, but even the home life. So
So
really
all
easy
what you
stuff.
have in your website, it's gonna be about helping ADHD learners.
Yeah, so also on my website, I've got downloadable newsletters that come out monthly. So
Amazing.
each month it's one topic. So it might just be organization of school mornings, or it might be for teachers. It's report time. What can we do differently? Like, so I've got one for adults, one for teachers with and one for parents of children with ADHD. And they're all free on my website, like downloadables that come out once a
Ooh,
month.
that's the
Yeah.
keyword. Free. We're gonna put it there.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
people love
because
free stuff.
bite-sized bits is really important,
Yeah,
Not too
that's very
much
good.
information.
Yes,
Mm,
exactly.
yeah,
So, okay, so now that you just said now, everything is about related to helping kids or helping people with
yeah,
ADHD. So for
yeah,
sure you have something about movement-based learning, maybe something about
yeah,
visual structure, chunking,
yeah,
emotional safety. That
yeah.
sounds very good. Practical classroom, maybe strategies.
Yes,
Yeah.
100%. Many of them, heaps. Yeah,
Ooh, ooh.
yeah.
I'm
So
gonna I'm gonna have
I
to
mean,
start doing that too.
yeah, well, here in Australia, I go out to schools and I sort of model what it can look like, but I really try and model what is going on in that child's mind, and this is why they're doing what they do. And I feel like what I've loved seeing that shift is there's been teachers that have been teaching for many years, and they are now letting kids, you know, do their work some days, and they're allowed to stand up and write. Like we've always
Mhm.
had that thinking, you must sit still so you can write neatly. Well, if you're ADHD and you sit still, all you can think about is the texture of the seat and you can't write neatly because you're ruminating and you're overwhelmed, right? So,
Yeah,
what if you have permission to stand up today and then they get a positive reception and positive feedback because they can finally concentrate because they get to stand and write? So, I
yeah.
love seeing teachers feel like they've got permission to do things differently. And I love that they then see with those kids, they're still getting what they need. In fact, they're actually happier. So, I love to
Mm.
see that shift in teaching.
Of course. That's the most important thing here there. So help the kids, help them to thrive, help them to like be better. Just
Yeah.
for them to I mean, because we're all actually normal. We're all here because we want to learn. We all want to be better teachers and we all want to help, but sometimes the system gets in the middle and there's a whole bunch of things that actually goes around.
That's right. It's a big vortex. It's
Yeah.
also awareness that, you know what, if you think about when you're a child, I'm sure you had that teacher that really understood you and that teacher that stays with you. And you think
Yeah.
back to your primary school and your high school and you're like, I love the way that teacher did that. And so one of my other missions is imagine if we can have these kids now that grow up to become adults that can think back to their childhood and go, I can't decide which teacher was my favorite because
Yeah.
they all got me. Like, wouldn't that be powerful? Because I
Wow.
know from the perspective of looking at my dad, for example, school shaped the way a lot of adults feel. It shaped who they think they are. And their feedback for so long was so negative that then they've come out thinking that's who they are. That child that
Mhm.
can't focus, can't finish a task, can't
Mhm.
concentrate. It's devastating that those words can have such power when you're 12 and you take it to when you're 40. So I want to be the shift, change the words to change the narrative.
Yeah. True. Now, moving on a little bit to the next part that I think we have to talk about a little bit of technology.
Yes,
Now that we are
yes,
surrounded by technology, social media, AI tools, and a
yeah,
whole bunch of things, is
yeah.
this making ADHD worse?
Yes. I mean, again, I'm not a pediatrician or psychiatrist, but what I do know is how dopamine works, and I also know how the brain works. And, AI was created as a tool to assist us. And it
Hmm.
seems to me like people rely on AI to assist in everything now. And it's not just a tool now, it's almost like as a part of your extension of your arm. And the problem with that is people aren't using different types of thinking pathways in their brain. They're not going into the deep depths of their brain to actually sort of process and think for themselves. And it is making kids and adults and teenagers, because you're using less parts, what's happening?
Hmm.
You're not as intelligent and you can't access common sense and problem solving skills like you used to be able to. So technology is having a big influence, but also even in socialization. So back in the day before, 2006, when phones became part of our bodies, we were having conversations more regularly. We were out after when school finished, we're out with our mates, we were able to problem solve when we got lost or we caught buses, we were quite independent. We're exploring the world. But what that exploration did was it helped develop our executive function skills. And those executive function skills up here in the front mean that you've got that common sense approach to have
Yeah.
flexible thinking, you're improving your working memory. There's so many benefits, right? And so now what's happening is like kids are relying so heavily on being entertained by external sources like gaming that they can't really think for themselves in moments of boredom. And boredom almost feels extremely painful. And when
Yeah.
they get bored, they get dysregulated and they cannot fill that space. And that space is called homeostasis. That is just the space of doing nothing, right? It
Mhm.
doesn't exist these days. So technology is having a huge impact in kids just being able to be and just almost do nothing and then create a game for themselves, because that also helps with them with self-awareness. So ADHD kids and even neurotypical kids lack self-awareness the way we used to have
Yes.
it in the 90s, because they can't tune into themselves and then make up some entertainment or some kind of game or some kind of outdoor activity. They heavily rely on
Creativity.
a
Yeah.
game that is brought to them. And in that algorithm or in that game, it also depletes their dopamine, which means when they have to come off the device, that transition, if you're ADHD in particular, the initiation of transitioning off a device is also very dysregulating.
Mhm.
So it's technology is great, but small bits, small pieces, and productive technology, learning a skill. If you learn a skill, you're acquiring, neurotransmitters can wire together and fire together. We know neuroplasticity now. Old dogs can learn new tricks. So use technology for skills, not just gaming and AI.
Exactly. But even I've seen actually parents just handing over the iPad or the phone to the kids. Oh, no, no, no. He just give it the phone. I mean, I don't want to hear anything. Just give it to him.
Yeah.
So sometimes instead of like supporting, we're not doing that. We're doing the opposite. So,
I think it's also, oh yeah, you go. Sorry, you go.
go ahead.
I think it's also we've got to understand the complexity of kids with ADHD. No one knows anyone else's story and no one's walked in anyone else's shoes, but raising ADHD is not the same as neurotypicals, and it takes a lot more emotional and like consistency, regulation, like there's a lot more that has to be in place to support these kids. So I think sometimes parents just need a break themselves. So they have to give a device to have a break, and that's also okay. It's just how often and when are you choosing the time to do it? So, you know what? If they need a device for a few hours so you can just recalibrate, then if that's what you need to do for yourself, opportunity versus the opportunity cost. What's it
Yeah.
going to cost you if you don't do that? So maybe that's what you need, but it's the time and place. So I would suggest to parents, if you're going to just give them a device because you need some time to yourself, be forgiving and don't be too harsh on yourself because you're on your own journey without a manual, but try not to give the devices at night, late at night, because it will impact their sleep cycle and their
Mhm.
circadian rhythm and their emotional response. So just
Yeah.
try to do that when you've got time in the day or just before it gets dark, because it's otherwise technology at night's not good for dreaming. It's not good for the circadian rhythm. It affects the melatonin production because your body doesn't know what time of day it is and it's using different
Exactly.
lights to predict where. Yeah. So if you just have to have a device time, don't be too hard on yourself, but choose your
Hmm.
time wisely.
Exactly. Yeah, it's true. Well, now that you're just saying this, this advice and all that, I remember we were actually talking the first time you told me that there was something actually that you would like to share with us. And it was something that I don't know if you would like to, if you thought about it or not.
Yeah,
So
I have thought about it, Mike. Is it time to share it?
maybe
A big
if you
part,
would like to.
yeah. Okay, so this is the first time I've spoken publicly about what happened to me as part of my journey. I speak about it in my workshops, so I can give context to people participating in my workshops that half the reason I do what I do, or a big part of what I do, is because of my beautiful husband that I was able to share 18 years with. But I haven't shared it in a space online, so see how it lands today in a sense of the words I choose. So, amongst my ADHD experience, also bringing in my husband, I met him at 20 and I got to spend 18 years with him. He was beautiful. He was a unique being. He was definitely very dysregulated on a regular basis, and that is because he had ADHD. So, in terms of his ADHD and how it made him feel, he was that boy that couldn't sit still. He was dyslexic, which is very common with ADHD, that dyslexia or dysgraphia or having a difficulty with working memory and processing disorders. But back to him, school was tough for him. He was too much. He was never focused. This is the opinion of others. He was lazy and so for a long time in his schooling, he was very misunderstood. And when he finally left school at 14, he dropped out. His confidence wasn't very high, of course,
Yeah.
because what he'd been told for his whole, you know, 10 years of schooling was you're not enough, you can't sit still and you can't retain information. So yeah, I met him as an adult and he was highly successful, very driven. He was a goal setter. He ended up working in the oil and gas industry, very successful job. And yeah, just I spent a lot of time with him, and on that journey, I didn't try to change who he was, but I learnt about his ADHD and how it showed up. He was super creative. He was clever. He could fix anything. He was an amazing man, and the thing he loved to do the most was to regulate himself. Was extreme sport. So he was into, the downhill skating and surfing, and then he sort of progressed and went into skydiving and wingsuiting, and then into base jumping. So for those that don't know base jumping, that sort of stands for jumping off a building, an antenna, span, or earth, and you only have one parachute. So in that space, death is something you need to talk about because 1 in 8 people that base jump potentially can die. So once he started doing those kind of extreme sports, my options were that I could worry about losing him, or I could see the happiness that the sports bring him and they
Mhm.
make him really live his life and, really enjoy what he's doing with himself. And I decided to not worry because that's not going to help anyone in any situation, but I decided to live very presently with him. And so whenever he goes on trips, nothing's left unsaid. We lived a really great life, lots of travel, lots of adventures. Sorry, the story's a little bit, but the part that's hard is in 2024, he went to Switzerland to do speed flying, and unfortunately, he had an accident there, and he passed away. So I became widowed, and that was the year I launched my business too. So just looking at sort of where I was at and what I hoped to achieve, I had two options when this happened. I spent years getting ready to start this business and changing the view on ADHD and wanting people to see the treasures that everyone has, like my dad, my brothers, my husband. So yeah, when this all happened, I was lucky enough to spend time with the monks in Thailand and just look at the perspective of what do I do now? What are my options? My options are I can sit in sadness for the rest of my life, or I can share this story and share how much ADHD impacts people and how much it's misunderstood and change the narrative. So I went the right side and I get to do this work. I get to speak about my husband, which is therapeutic in what I do. I carry on his legacy. And I always think of imagine if I could change the world or change the view for the boy that he was, for the
Mm.
future boys and girls in the world coming up with ADHD. So a lot of my work is dedicated to him. And as I said, it took a little while to share that part, but my first time sharing it publicly. So I do what I do for my family and for my husband's legacy because it's such a complex, misunderstood topic that I want people to really understand, uncover, support, nurture, and change their view going forward. So that's
Well,
a big part of my story too.
well, I gotta say, first of all, thank you very much for sharing, for opening up your heart and telling us something that is very personal. And for sure, he's there looking at you and definitely proud of you. Keep doing this job because this job is not something that everybody can do. There are certain angels, and you are the chosen one. So, may God bless him. And for sure, he was a great, great man. It was good actually that you were next to him. It was good. So this story can actually help others and make them understand that we are normal. Doesn't matter what it is, ADHD or not. We all have goals. We all can be better. We all can be the best of us every day. For sure, that's one of the examples that actually your husband gave us. He did
Yeah, and
everything.
he had no
Amazing.
regrets, Mike. Yeah. And when we had his celebration of life, you know what? People walked away going, I need to live more because he had no regrets. He fit so much in his life. He didn't worry, which worried me sometimes, but he didn't worry. He enjoyed himself. He did what he wanted to do in his life. He set goals, he achieved them. He was understood. I understood him, I accepted him. I learned so much from him. So yeah, he's definitely, I feel like he's somewhere around me by my side, but his legacy will definitely live on, and I'll keep working on changing the view because something else that sits heavily with ADHD is ADHDers do have a higher chance of having, depression, anxiety,
Oh,
OCD, addiction. They're more likely to have car accidents. Divorce rates are higher. There's more ADHD juveniles in prison. And again, that's about
mhm,
executive function. So it is the kind of condition that does put people at risk when misunderstood. And that extreme risk taking regulates some of the people that have it, which is why a lot of extreme sport athletes have ADHD. It really almost just like is like their meditation. It's their mindfulness, puts them in a state of calm. So also understanding that when you're ADHD, there is a higher prevalence that, you are going to seek more extreme behaviors in some ways to regulate yourself, but also you are at risk if you aren't in a supportive environment, and you don't go down the path of looking at what it is and how your brain works, you can be at risk of developing
mhm.
secondary mental health disorders. So it's a very important topic to digest and learn about because once you know why you do what you do, you've got the power to make a change and even just understand yourself better instead of feeling shame that a strategy suggested to you doesn't work. So the more you learn about your ADHD, the more you can manage how you choose to move forward with it.
Yeah, exactly. And I think all what you've said plus the story, I think different doesn't mean broken, I would say.
Correct, 100%. It's not being cured. You don't
Hmm.
cure it. You learn to live with it, you learn to love it, and you learn that some things won't work for you, like just get a diary. Well, an ADHD will probably lose their diary and or have six diaries and not know which one to work with, and we
Hmm.
don't need them to feel bad. So how about not getting a diary? How about using a new system? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
but
it's
everything is
it's
about the
true.
surrounding. Everything is also
Yeah.
about the surrounding. I think that's why I'm saying again. I think your husband was very lucky to have you there because you know exactly you were learning a lot, and at the same time you
Yes.
were learning and teaching,
Yeah.
maybe both of you at the same time.
We
It was a
were.
really
Yeah.
good connection there. So
Yeah.
imagine you doing that, but how many people are actually not having that chance to do that?
Yeah.
And sharing this story, for sure, it will help them to do even better.
It will. And even just feeling understood, like a lot of ADHDs are very rigid and set in their ways, and they have an
Mhm.
intolerance to a sense of injustice. And there's a lot of that rigid thinking. So teaching others how to step out of that situation of why you're behaving like that and understand why they are. And then when there's the right time, you can talk about different ways to approach it instead of looking at it from a blame perspective. So you do learn so much when you live with people with ADHD, and every
Mhm.
ADHD presentation is different.
Oh yeah,
It's
definitely.
inconsistent. It's inconsistently consistent. Do you know what I mean? Like
Yes.
they might run late, but that's because they're doing a task before they leave the house because they finally thought they
Mhm.
better do that task before they go. And they might run late or they might run
Yeah.
early because they don't want to be late and not be able to find a park. Or there's many inconsistencies that they also can seem consistent with the
Yeah.
characteristics of ADHD.
Yeah. So when you actually just share this story in your workshop, what's the first reaction that you see there?
I usually share it at the beginning. So I sort of say to people, my story of ADHD is extensive and I would call it a bookend. It's not just one part, I've got a lot. Growing up as watching my brothers being treated at school, some of them, one of them in particular, being treated poorly, really hurt me because I was like, he's such a great kid, but he was misunderstood. And then I talk a bit about my dad and how he left school early. And then I also talk about my teaching experience. And then I tell people, and to top off my ADHD experience, because, we smile about it. Because if you don't laugh, you cry, right? I married ADHD too, the full experience.
Yeah.
I loved him and I always will love him. But I share that the way he regulated himself, the only way he could regulate himself was these extreme sports. And that is because ADHD is so disabling and so dysregulating and hard for people to have, even as adults. It doesn't go away. So when I share the part about losing my husband, I reflect on the fact that there's certain things about him that I try to show little snippets of who he was. So he had OCD, which is quite common, ADHD and OCD, and he was obsessed with even numbers. So I'll tell a quick
Oh,
story, Mike, because you've got to see the
go
smile
ahead. Yes.
sometimes. So he loved even numbers. So everything had to be
Wow.
even, the radio, the TV, he had all these like superstitions around even numbers. So we got engaged on an even day, even month, even year. And we got married and again, all even. So I had to wait 2 years after getting engaged to get married, right?
Oh,
But
understand.
my husband actually passed away, and this is where I smile because if you don't smile, you cry. He passed away on the 4th of June, the 4th of the 6th, 2024. And I know without sound, it's like I know as who he was and how black and white he was, he'd be happy. He even went out on the day that is all about his favorite numbers, like even, even, even. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I know that sounds you can't. It's like how do you see how do I see the fun part? Or I just know him. But you know what else I know? He died doing what he loved. He didn't suffer. He fit so much in, and he didn't die on the way to work. He died doing what he loved. And I sometimes think that makes the grief never goes away and I carry it with me, but I know how happy he was. So that makes me happy to know how happy he was in
Of
life and he
course.
was understood. He was understood by me. I didn't try to change him. And I love that we had that time together where he got to meet someone who met him where he was. And if anything, I learnt so much from him and I feel that he learnt so much from me.
That sentence you just say, it's I didn't want to change him, you said. And
Yeah,
that sentence is powerful because acceptance. And I really hope
yeah,
actually this episode can reach many people and reach the people who actually need it with this ADHD situation that they don't know how to handle and all that. Of course, if they would like to hear a little bit more about this, they can contact you and come to you for a better and more professional um, insight of what they're
yeah,
going through or something like it. So really good. I'm really happy and thank you very much for sharing this story. And I would like to, I didn't actually ask you about this, but I would like to dedicate this episode to your husband. So I would like to put his name, if you allow me, at the end of this
yeah,
episode,
yeah.
and in love and memory of your husband.
Oh, that would be very touching, Mike. Definitely. Yeah.
I
You know,
think,
he didn't like social media. He didn't
mhm,
have social media, but he has the most incredible footage, and it just makes me smile because, you know, look where I'm going now, and being able
yeah,
to share his story and know that we're going to dedicate this episode to him. He'll
yeah,
be like, no, but I also say yes because we can make change, you know, we
yeah,
can change the
exactly.
story. Yeah.
This story can touch many, and for sure it can be like that little kick that some other parents or teachers need to be a little bit more aware about this and give that hope to everyone, the whole community, teachers,
Ha-
parents, everyone.
Yeah.
Exactly.
100%. It will, this too shall pass. That is what I like to say. It will get easier and it will get better. And once children with ADHD can choose their own adventure and start choosing their choices in work and especially uni and get past that schooling phase, that's where they really get to extend their skills, feel better, grow, and they dive deep into areas that they're interested in and start really flourishing. So
Mhm.
it's like this too shall pass, but you get there and they just thrive and grow. But then they need that nurturing and that positive and that love and meet
Exactly.
them where they are, you know?
Exactly. So coming to a close now, if schools were redesigned specifically for neurodiverse minds tomorrow, what
Yeah.
would classroom look like?
Oh, okay. So there'd be like flexible sort of thinking around when it's time to sit and do your work. You could actually stand and do your work. You could sit and do your work. You could maybe, because I need to think about duty of care because I'm a teacher,
Mhm.
but more flexibility in how actual work output looks. That would be one thing I'd change. Lots more positive, being conscious that positive, what you focus on grows. The more positive you can be, children with ADHD can store that positive in an emotional part of their brain or episodic part of their brain, and then they'll feel better about trying tasks the next day and the next day. So, classrooms that have lots of affirmations, have lots of positive feedback, and even positive posters about ways to think about yourself. Also, just, you know, kids that can laugh, kids that can joke, kids that can smile. And when that kid calls out, you say to them, thank you. And you just leave it there. They're not always calling out to annoy you. They're calling out because they're scared they're going to forget. It doesn't have to always
Exactly.
be not now is not your time to talk. So smiles, laughter, movement, positive affirmations.
Beautiful. So this is how we actually close this episode. I gotta say thank you very much again for being here. And again, this episode is for your loving husband. I really hope you can keep helping everyone. And if somebody would like to actually reach her out, please check on the description. I'm gonna leave all your social media, all your contact information there. So if somebody would like to know a little bit more about this. Again, Eliza, I'm sorry. Thank you very
No,
much
you're
one more
okay.
time.
That's all
Thank you
right,
very
Mike.
much.
Thank you so much for having me. I've really enjoyed our chat tonight, and I really hope that this can help people shift their thinking. I am actually writing a book too, Mike, so that will be ready at the end of the year. And I'll release the information about that on my socials once that's ready. So, yeah, definitely jump on
Perfect.
and join the journey.
So this is your house. Anytime you would like to come and share something else, you're more than welcome.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Mike.
Okay, thank you. Until next time.